Alright, kids, let's read another chapter. This one is called, I think this is chapter 6, maybe? 5, 6? Let me check. They don't have numbers on them on the pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6. It's titled, I Meet One of My Own Kind and Have a Terrible Time Getting Away. Hoo-hoo. What's gonna happen? 5 notches into June. He's talking about his aspen pole calendar again. 5 notches into June, my house was done. I could stand in it, lie down in it. Oh, I'm gonna rotate a little bit here. Gosh, hard to get comfortable in this little bed sometimes. It is little. Okay. Lie down in it. And there was room left over for a stump to sit on. On warm evenings, I would lie on my stomach and look out the door, listen to the frogs and nighthawks, and hope it would storm so that I could crawl into my tree and be dry. I had gotten soaked during a couple of May downpours, and now that my house was done, I wanted the chance to sit in my hemlock and watch a cloudburst wet everything but me. This opportunity didn't come for a long time. It was dry. One morning, I was at the edge of the meadow. I had cut down a small ash tree and was chopping it into lengths, about 18 inches each. This was the beginning of my bed that I was planning to work on after supper every night. With the golden summer upon me, food was much easier to get, and I actually had several hours of free time after supper in which to do other things. I had been eating frogs' legs, turtles, and best of all, an occasional rabbit. My snares and traps were set now. Furthermore, I had a good supply of cattail roots I had dug in the marsh. If you ever eat cattails, be sure to cook them well. I've never had cattails. Otherwise, the fibers are tough and they take more chewing to get the starchy food from them than they are worth. However, they taste just like potatoes after you've been eating them for a couple of weeks. And in my way of thinking, they are extremely good. You know what else is good? To my way of thinking? Yeah, that's wet. So, I'm gonna wet my whistle so I can keep reading. Okay. Now we can go on. Put it here so I don't get anything dripping in it. Alright. Well, anyway, that summer morning when I was gathering material for a bed, I was singing and chopping and playing a game with a raccoon I had come to know. He had just crawled in a hollow tree and had gone to bed for the day when I came to the meadow. From time to time, I would tap on his tree with my axe. He would hang his sleepy head out, snarl at me, close his eyes, and slide out of sight. The third time I did this, I knew something was happening in the forest. Instead of closing his eyes, he pricked up his ears and his face became drawn and tense. His eyes were focused on something down the mountain. I stood up and looked. I could see nothing. And here are some pictures of a couple of snares. Check that out. Do you see how they work? Here's a little noose. And a little animal comes hopping through there and they go between these trees. And the noose, the loop, pulls this little sapling out of that peg and it whips up, and when it does, it closes the noose around the animal's neck and hangs them up there so you can go and get it. This is a similar one, except it uses bait. This is a leg hold trap, so an animal walks up here, his feet go in here, and he starts nibbling on that little piece of bait. And when he does, the stick trips this little hook, and that little sapling will flip up and grab whatever it was by the head and feet, if it works. I've tried setting traps like that in the past. Not very hard though, because I never got anything. It says this device is set along an animal's runway. That means that you can kind of see where he sort of drew it, but the grass is tamped down there because it's a spot where animals used to walk a lot. Animals use roads and follow patterns just like people do. And this one says, this one will work sometimes too. I squatted down and went back to work. The raccoon dove out of sight. Now what's got you all excited? I said, and tried once more to see what he had seen. I finished the posts for the bed and was looking around for a bigger ash to fell and make slats for springs when I nearly jumped out of my shoes. Now what are you doing up here all alone? It was a human voice. I swung around and stood face to face with a little old lady in a pale blue sunbonnet and a loose brown dress. "Oh gosh," I said, "don't scare me like that. Say one word at a time until I get used to a human voice." I must have looked frightened because she chuckled, smoothed down the front of her dress, and whispered, "Are you lost?" "Oh, no, ma'am," I stuttered. "Then a little fellow like you should not be all alone way up here on this haunted mountain." "Haunted?" I said. "Yes, indeed. There's an old story says there are little men up here who play ninepins right down in that gorge in the twilight." She peered at me. "Are you one of them?" "Oh, no, I said. "I read that story. It's just make-believe." I laughed, and she puckered her forehead. "Well, come on," she said. "Make some use of yourself and help me fill this basket with strawberries." I hesitated. She meant my strawberry supply. "Now get on with you. A boy your age should be doing something worthwhile instead of playing mumbly pegs with sticks. Come on, young man." She jogged me out of the meadow. We worked quite a while before we said any more. Frankly, I was wondering how to save my precious strawberries, and I may say I picked slowly. Every time I dropped one in her basket, I thought how good it would taste. "Where do you live?" I jumped. It's terribly odd to hear a voice after weeks of listening only to birds and raccoons, and what is more to hear a voice ask a question like that. "I live here," I said. "You mean Delhi? Fine, you can walk me home." Nothing I added did any good. She would not be shaken from her belief that I lived in Delhi, so I let it go. We must have reaped every last strawberry before she stood up, put her arm in mine, and escorted me down the mountain. I was certainly not escorting her. Her wiry little arms were like crayfish pinchers. I couldn't have gotten away if I tried, so I walked and listened. She told me all about the local and world news, and it was rather pleasant to hear about the National League and the atom bomb test, and a Mr. Riley's three-legged dog that chased her chickens. In the middle of all this clatter, she said, "That's the best strawberry patch in the entire Catskill Range. I come up here every spring. For 40 years I've come to that meadow for my strawberries. It gets harder every year, but there's no jam can beat the jam from that mountain. I know. I've been around here all my life." Then she went right into the New York Yanks without putting in a period. As I helped her across the stream on big boulders, I heard a cry in the sky. I looked up. Swinging down the valley on long pointed wings was a large bird. I was struck by the ease and swiftness of its flight. "Duck hawk," she said. "Nests around here every year. My man used to shoot 'em. He said they killed chickens, but I don't believe it. The only thing that kills chickens is Mr. Riley's three-legged dog." She tipped and teetered as she crossed the rocks, but she kept right on talking and stepping as if she knew that no matter what, she would get across. We finally reached the road. I wasn't listening to her very much. I was thinking about the duck hawk. This bird, I was sure, was a peregrine falcon, the king's hunting bird. I will get one. I will train it to hunt for me, I said to myself. Finally, I got the little lady to her brown house at the edge of town. She turned fiercely upon me. I started back. Where are you going, young man? I stopped. Now, I thought, she's going to march me into town. Into town? Well, that's where I'll go then, I said to myself, and I turned on my heel, smiled at her, and replied, to the library. The end of the chapter. Well, kids, what'd you think? So we find out that people come to the Gribbly farm, even though they don't know it's the Gribbly farm. I bet that Sam's great-grandfather or his great-grandmother planted those strawberries 100 years ago, and that the patch is still going. That's sad that that lady took all of his strawberries, but she's been going there longer than he has. But it is his land, so I don't know. Either way, it's troubling news. Okay, we'll see what happens next time. Love you guys. Bye.